Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. Happy belated Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas Day, all of it. Woo, just happy to be alive, happy to be on the planet, happy to be here with all of you. Thank you very much for being here. And for those of you that have welcomed us into your homes today, I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much. The technology is amazing, and I'm glad that we are able to participate in it. Is there anyone that's here for the very first time? I don't think so. All right, well, good. Then you all know who I am, so I'm just going to start right in.
The reading for today is by Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith. He says, "Evolved people give to live until they live to give. As individuals expand their understanding of universal law, they learn to give in order to live a life of inner wealth. They understand that they live in an opulent universe that seeks instruments through which to give of its unconditional love, compassion, loving kindness, and resources. This is a process of growing out of a mindset of getting something from the world to letting something from within you be freely given. Generosity takes you off living on the me plan or the we for no more plan to consider putting yourself on a giving program that provides evidence that you are a generative being, that your generosity is a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosmic givingness of the Spirit." Yes.
So welcome to those of you who may have just arrived in the sanctuary. Happy holidays. Today is Christmas Eve day, so I thought I would share with you a Christmas Eve kind of thing, but with a little bit of a twist. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas by Reverend Liz Luoma. I'll say day. 'Twas the day before Christmas, when all through my mind not one thought was stirring, it was rather sublime. Open to the greatest good there could possibly be, I wondered, was there really a God self in me? All my feelings were also quietly asleep, while visions of great joy my intentions to reap. Both my left brain and right brain also joined in, letting go of all thinking, we could finally begin. In the midst of this quiet arose a great shift. Inside I could feel my whole spirit lift. My inner vision opened, something was new, yet it was still quite a mystery. I hadn't a clue. Then in the sky of my mind there shone a great light, giving me great joy and delightful insight. Before me was a baby so innocent and pure. This child was God. I knew this for sure. Yet something seemed strange. There was something more, which I had never seen or realized before. This child was me, and I knew as a fact that what I had once known as limitation and lack were simply ideas planted in my mind by others who had also simply been blind. The traits of my God self I now truly knew as peace, love, and joy, and great freedom too. At that very moment I released fear, worry, and doubt. I knew only gratitude inside and out. Seeing the truth that God and I are one, I now realized I was God's daughter or son. Jesus was King here to show us the way. He taught only love and how we ought pray. To become like a child living in trust, releasing all fears, is always a must. For heaven is now, it's right where we live, It's not about getting, it's about what we give. Jesus the Savior was born long ago, not in a palace, but in a manger so low. The Savior is consciousness. It's in you and me. It's in knowing the truth we are finally free. So let's open our hearts and open our minds. Let us all go within where each shall find the gift of pure love, expansive and free. It's the gift of God's love living as you and as me. Embrace the Christ child that you truly are, knowing in the darkest of times there is this bright shining star. Look to this truth star, shiny and bright. Know your divinity and holy birthright. May we all live today as pure Christ consciousness, living as God's love. We truly are blessed. And so it is. Okay. No. So while the poem was actually really quite perfect for today, it actually is also really quite perfect for the theme of the month of December, which is your path to integrity. The path to integrity is living our truth, living the truth of who and what we are, living from the inside out, living from pure consciousness. Knowing the truth of our oneness with God, we live our lives as ambassadors of our God self. Really an outward expression of peace, joy, love, and freedom. It is striving to let our inner convictions match our outer actions, truly knowing our divinity and expressing it in all arenas and in all moments of our lives. Now, metaphysically, this is what Christmas is all about. The birth of our awareness of our Christ consciousness. The Christmas story is really a very beautiful story, but it's not just about the birth of a Jewish child in a manger to Mary and Joseph over 2,000 years ago in a little town called Bethlehem. The Christmas story is our story. It's the drama of the birth of our awakening to the truth that we are the Christ expressing at the point of us. Metaphysically, it represents transformation in consciousness. This is the beginning of the path to integrity, and it doesn't have to happen only at Christmas time, because each and every single day we have the opportunity to powerfully step into this truth. The truth of who we are, the truth of our beingness, the truth of this light of Christ consciousness within us. Now, my talk title today is Life is for Giving. Not to be mistaken with forgiving. Although I could talk for a little bit about that too. But today it is about forgiving. The underlying foundational idea is that there is a givingness that is always happening in the universe. The givingness of God. And as we behold the beauty, order, abundance, and harmony of life, it is really actually quite inconceivable to even entertain the idea of a God that is not continually manifesting itself, continually giving of itself. Likewise, when we turn our attention inward to the depths of our inner being, we sense even more profoundly this givingness, which is always sustaining and maintaining our very lives. God gives life and well-being to all, continually. Ernest Holmes says, we believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in these things because, quite frankly, anything less is not acceptable. We are all a part of a continuous flow of good, of peace, of joy, of abundance, and of love. It's an ever-flowing stream which is our birthright, and which we can partake of through our participation with it. Through our participation with it. Now, the path to integrity lies in consciously choosing to be a part of that flow. As an incarnation of the divine, it is our privilege to consciously participate in this divine givingness. In truth, our hearts are always yearning for us to do this. We can't really be aware of receiving without also experiencing some impulse to want to give. Giving and receiving are one and the same activity, and they're both a part of this divine circulation that takes place at every point of creation, that takes place everywhere at all times. Reverend Joan Stedman says, "As you receive graciously, you give by allowing the act of generosity to happen. And as you give, you receive the satisfaction of participating in universal givingness. Thus you experience great joy in the divine activity of giving and receiving." So it is God's nature to give. And because we were created in the image and likeness of God, then therefore it is our nature to give. The path to integrity lies in consciously choosing to give. Now, this includes our willingness to be able to share our lives, our time, our talents, our love, our light, and our treasure with everyone, because really, in truth, none of it belongs to us. None of it belongs to us. They are only passing through our being as part of the infinite life, the one life. Now, the spiritual practice of giving begins with the recognition that it is part of our nature to not only receive, but to also give. Our inner life actually deepens when we make a conscious plan to give. And through our giving, we experience being part of, an integral part of this flow of life. We experience that. This is the law of giving and receiving, the law of circulation in action. And this law of giving and receiving only works as we allow the divine current to flow through us and out. This is the only way that we really can express life. Now, there's a story that tells about a circuit riding preacher who spoke one evening at a very small rural church, and his 10-year-old son came along with him. Now, just inside of the door to the church, there is a box, and the people put in their offerings for that service inside of that box. So on the way in, this preacher took and put $10 into this box. After the sermon, he was told that his honorarium would be all of the money that was in the box. So as he and his son left the church, he reached into the box and took out the money, $10, out of the box. And on the way to the car, the young boy said, "I guess you would have gotten, if you would have put more in, you would have gotten more out." Now this is true not only for money, but it's true for love. It's true for kindness. It's true for joy. It's true for peace. It's true for compassion. What we are willing to give and give generously, we will receive. You heard Reverend Michael Beckwith say in today's reading, evolved people give to live until they live to give. As individuals expand their understanding of universal law, they learn to live in order to they learn to give in order to live a life of inner wealth. They understand that they live in an opulent universe that seeks instruments through which to give unconditional love, compassion, loving kindness, and resources. This is a process of growing out of a mindset of getting something from the world to letting something from within you be freely given. This is that idea of being God's ambassadors, of allowing that all of those qualities, those values, to really be expressed through and as you. That's why we're here, to give. We give because it is our nature. This is the real breakthrough that comes through spiritual understanding. There's nothing more natural than to give for the sheer joy of it. To give is to be alive, to express what we really are. To take, withhold, or hoard anything causes us to feel less alive, to feel less than who we really are. Now, the bottom line is that we are the presence of God itself. We are the presence of love itself. We are the presence of givingness itself. Ernest Holmes says, if love is the self-givingness of spirit, then that man who most completely loves will most completely give of himself to life. The man who loves his work gives himself to it. The one who loves his art gives himself to it. We give ourselves to our friends and to our family and to the causes that we really love. Love is always the giving of the self to something. God gave us life, and we have the opportunity, we have the responsibility, we have the great joy to be able to give back to life. Ernest Holmes was once asked what the long-term purpose of the science of mind philosophy was. And he replied that it was to serve in the upliftment of the consciousness of the entire human race. Lofty. I love it. When we give as God gives, we become deeply aware of our spiritual nature. When we give as God lives, we gain an expanded awareness of exactly how God's universe works. When we give as God gives, our lives and the lives of those around us are transformed. When we give as God gives, we participate in the upliftment of the consciousness of the entire planet. When we give as God gives, we are blessed, and we are the blessing. It's almost Christmas. And what better time to talk about giving than at Christmas, the season of giving. Now, tomorrow morning, or maybe even this evening, we will exchange gifts with those that we love. And as we do, the invitation is to remember that the best gifts don't come in wrapping paper. They come from the heart. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is a well-loved and very familiar story for most people. In the character of Ebenezer Scrooge, we are offered an example of someone who is shown how much richer life can be when you place value on what's meaningful to the heart rather than what's meaningful to the pocketbook. Now, on a cold and blustery night, Scrooge is visited by the ghost of his former business partner, Jacob Marley, who, like Scrooge, was a cold and greedy businessman. Now, right before his own eyes, Scrooge sees the pain and the weight that Marley bears because of the error of his ways. Scrooge was then visited by 3 more apparitions, the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. With a new perspective, he chooses to change. He chooses to become loving and kind. He chooses to give from his heart. We too have a choice. We have a choice to give back to life. We can choose to be the space and place that expresses those important gifts that cannot be wrapped. We can choose to give the gift of our time and energy, the gift of our deep listening, the gift of our attention, the gift of our light, the gift of our love. The best Christmas gift that we could ever give ourselves is to fulfill the possibility of being all that we were created to be. Now, this season could really be more than simply a replay of all of the Christmases that have come before it. It can be a time of really creating some shape and form around this higher possibility. It could be a time for really stepping into it. But the invitation is to recognize that it's not just an opportune time during the holidays to step into that, but really it is important that we begin to step into that every moment of every day. That the world would be a much different place if we were to do that. Now, on Friday, I worked at Duke. This last Friday, I worked at Duke. For those of you that don't know, I'm a physical therapist. Now, I was assigned to both the oncology floor and to the general medicine floor. Now, these floors are typically filled with people who are experiencing great dis-ease within their body, their physical bodies. Now, I had the pleasure and the privilege of serving a number of people who really touched me with their stories about giving. The first story I heard right after I arrived. I was riding in the elevator from the parking lot up to the 6th floor where the rehab gym is. And I happened to hold the elevator door open for a mother and her 3 teenage children. Now, collectively, they were pushing 2 wheelchairs that were piled up high with a number of really big boxes. And on the sides of those boxes, the words read, "The Comfort Project." And so I asked them, what is the Comfort Project? And the mother explained to me that her daughter had been treated by the Duke Pediatric Oncology Department and that she was, in this moment, 5 years cancer-free. And that they had, over the years, come back every Christmas to give some small gifts to the children. But more importantly, they came back to give their love and their joy and their stories of healing. Later that morning, I treated a man who told me a story that is a little bit similar. He had been visited earlier in the day by a man who also had been treated by the Duke Adult Oncology Department. And he now, on that Friday, was 1 year cancer-free. And he had come back to share hope and encouragement and upliftment and to inspire the people that he talked with. Another man I talked with told me about the lessons that he had learned at Duke. He was amazed that his 91-year-old mother had come to visit him every single day since he had arrived at the hospital. Now, with a tinge of sadness, he recalled memories of all of the times that he had meant to visit her after work, but found himself too tired to go out again. Now, like Scrooge, in that moment, he made a different choice around who he was going to be in the matter from that moment on. A choice born out of the awareness of just how blessed he was by the gift of her presence, by the gift of her love, by the gift of her attention, by the gift of her deep listening, by the gift of her light. He too wanted to express his highest and best, to give from his Christ consciousness. As I was preparing for this talk, I found a little poem called Christmas, and it's by an anonymous author. It says, "Every time a hand reaches out to help another, that is Christmas. Every time someone puts anger aside and strives for understanding, that is Christmas. Every time people forget their differences and realize their love for each other, that is Christmas. May this Christmas bring us closer to the spirit of human understanding, closer to the blessing of peace." So the invitation today is for each of us to look within ourselves to see if there is room to give, room to begin to give, or room to begin to give a little bit more of our lives, of our deep listening, of our attention, of our light, or of our love, or of our treasure. What I know is true for me is that wherever we are on this path to integrity, that whatever we can give and whenever we can give it is absolutely perfect. That there is no right or wrong or good or bad. That it is all really in divine right order. It is all part of our nature. Life is for giving. And so it is. So I invite you to turn within. And it is here in the inner side of life, the deep core of my beingness, that I recognize God, the benevolent, infinite, ever-present, loving, peaceful, joyful, abundant, compassionate, grace-filled presence. Everywhere, at all times, there is not a spot where God is not. I know that right where I am, God is. In its fullness, in its wholeness, that all that it is, I am, and yet it is so much grander. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is absolutely true for each and every person here this morning and each and every person watching this service online. Each of us is a unique and divine expression of God and ambassador of God on the planet at this time. And it is from that place of deep and abiding connection that I speak these words about and for each of us this morning, truly knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation, that within us there is a spark of the divine, a Christ consciousness. That during this season, what is born in us is an awareness of that Christ consciousness, an awareness and an ability to powerfully step into living our lives from that space. That we can be that presence of peace, that we can be that presence of joy, that we can be that presence of compassion in every arena, in every moment of our lives. That truly it is who and what we have come here to be. It is our privilege, it is our responsibility, it is our joy. And I claim ease and grace around it for each of us. Knowing that truly as we push aside anything unlike it, and just open ourselves to the flow of it, that it flows through us and out into our lives, blessing everything and everyone, transforming lives, creating a world that works for everyone. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes, that they are made whole, perfect, and complete, even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and I release them with love and gratitude. And I invite each of us to anchor it for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, and so it is. And so it is. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, everyone.